Hello and welcome to podcast episode number 5, the Soul Tap podcast. I am coming to you now on December 20th, 2021. We are 5 days away from Christmas, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, all the things. I absolutely love this time of year. I love when it's cold outside. I love just being able to slow down, spend time with my family, and reflect. And I've been doing so much reflection lately, and through this reflection is this podcast episode for you today. I had one of the most profound breakthroughs with God recently that I want to share with you. And this breakthrough was that I finally understand and appreciate the lessons for the intense amount of adversity that I've been facing throughout these past couple of years as I made the decision to leave a job and leave a community that was not fruitful for me, that was a really toxic environment for me. And so this is a story that I want to share with you today. But before I really get into this, I have a few disclaimers, a heavy list of disclaimers. It's taken me a very long time, the better part of a couple of years, to really find a way to approach this topic and position myself in a way that's truly to help other people in dealing with maybe a similar situation in your own life, and not for my own satisfaction of sharing this story, not for the satisfaction of getting, revenge, quote unquote, or, getting back at anyone or anything like that. And it's taken me so much prayer, so much intentional prayer, and so much time with God asking him, like, is this what I am meant to share? Is this what you want me to share? Am I going to find a way to do it that is professional and informative, but is not, just dragging someone else down, right? And I finally feel like I'm in a position to do that. So thank you, Jesus, for positioning me for this podcast episode today. My intention is absolutely never, ever, ever to slander, shame, hurt, or put anyone else down or anyone else's business down. I have so much grace with people. I completely understand that we are all just people. We are all just human beings having this human experience of life and trying to figure out day by day how to be a better version of ourselves. I know some of us are more committed to that than others. And so I don't want to sound like I'm just, there's no grace at all for people's actions, and understanding that there's room for salvation and room for growth and room for healing, if you will. So my prayers are for the people who have wronged me. You may be even listening to this podcast. Maybe someone sent it your way. I don't know. Or maybe you just like to listen to my stuff. I don't know. But my prayers are with you. My prayers are with you. This has not always been an easy prayer to pray for the people who have wronged you or pray for the people that hurt you. However, I do believe that we are not supposed to repay evil with evil, and that it's only suffering. We're only causing more suffering for ourselves if we're not able to wish the best for people, even people that we may not like or get along with or anything like that. So those are my disclaimers. Some of you listening to this may know some of the people that are talked about throughout this podcast, throughout this story. Obviously, I'm not going to use names or anything like that, but I know it's a very close-knit community. And I do want to say, like, if you approach me with a message that is, gossiping or, holding any sort of negative talk, I absolutely am not going to be entertaining that, nor will I entertain any sort of negative comments either. This is just simply a story that I'm sharing. I'm more than happy to connect with you, but I'm not going to be connecting with you through gossip. So let's get to the meat of the story. So I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to tell you the lessons that follow. And the lessons are really like the big part of this conversation that I want you to focus on. The story is just to give you a little backstory of where I came from and how I was able to learn these lessons over time. So I was 19 when I first became a yoga teacher, and I really started to dream about the potential of helping people. Lots of you guys know I actually went to school to become a psychologist. I thought I was going to, become a therapist of some sort, even go to medical school at one point. And then I found yoga, and I was like, no, I want to take this approach in helping people, which led me to the journey I'm on now, working with yoga, Ayurveda, and essential oils in a business. But this is like at 19 years old. I took my yoga teacher training at 18, became a yoga teacher at 19, and started teaching. This is where I really saw the potential. I started teaching literally anywhere and everywhere. I was dreaming so big. I had no attachments to what I was doing. I had no attachments to how much money I was making. I just wanted to help people and I just wanted to teach people yoga. It was like, put people in front of me and I will teach you literally anything. I've taught on cafeteria floors, I've taught in libraries, I've taught in gyms, I've taught in like the most random places. I've taught in a dentist's office before. I've taught in so many different places and lots of free classes too, actually. And at this time, as most of us are at those young ages, especially when you're just trying to like figure your life out, we are so impressionable. And I was so impressionable and so easily influenced. And I had a mentor who happened to be my yoga teacher. She also was my teacher for yoga teacher training school. She was the reason I got my yoga teacher certification. She taught me literally everything. And she really, really, really influenced me. And I held her at a very, very high standard in my life, which reflecting back, that was my own wrongdoing too, is to put someone on such a pedestal, kind of worshiping her in a way. Not that that was necessarily asked of me, but it was just like I just had her in such a high regard in my mind. I did not have my faith at the time. And so I put the amount of faith that I have in God right now, I put on a human being, which is just not fair to a human being because no one is God and no one holds the potential of God and no one is as powerful as God himself, right? And so that's my own wrongdoing. And I reflect on that and totally understand that. But anyway, I was gifted this opportunity to start teaching at this woman's studio. And it was my dream studio. It's where I got my yoga teacher certification. It's where I first had the idea of ever becoming a yoga teacher. And I went on to teach there for about 6 years, building just such an awesome big community there, teaching thousands and thousands and thousands of classes and workshops and really establishing myself, right? And really, really, really building my roots there. And I was so committed to this community. And I remember at one point, David asked me, before we kind of knew where we were going to be settling down, I remember him asking like, are you okay with relocating if we relocate to a different state one day? And I remember saying no. I was like, nope, I would never relocate away from this studio. I am going to stay here forever, which also might not be the most healthy mentality to have at that stage, but that's just how committed I was to that. But over the years of being there, I started to notice a deterioration in the integrity of the people that were working there, of the owners, in conjunction with a really intense lack of leadership and lack of support. I started to see a lot of judgment and a lot of gossip, lots of behind the scenes talk that I just wasn't comfortable with. And don't get me wrong, I took part in it. Like I was 100% spiraled into it. And it was not cute. It was just a really just not fun situation, right? Gossiping is never a good thing. It's one of those things that people make you feel like, that's what you do. You're connecting or you're just venting. But when you're literally just tearing other people down or making fun of people, that's absolutely not okay. And I started to notice that and I started to speak up on it a couple of times, kind of got some slack for it, kind of was just gossiped. I was gossiped about because of the fact that I spoke up about the gossip. Take that one. And I just started to feel a lack of connection. And it was really difficult for me because I loved the students and I loved what I did so much to this day, where I miss teaching those specific students so much. And some of them I'm still in contact with, but I just miss being in that setting with them and being in that community with them, because for me, that's what it was all about. And that's who I showed up for. And for a really long time, I was able to put that on the forefront of my mind and to just kind of ignore all of the other stuff until 2020 hit. So 2020 hit and, COVID came rolling in like the ultimate wrecking ball, right? And it really, really hit small businesses. It especially really hit fitness studios and yoga studios. And so, this thunder that was really starting to roll in with COVID started to really expose so many different layers of the situation that I was in, and the negative situations that I kind of let build up over the years. And I'm obviously not going into detail about that for obvious purposes. But what really happened in 2020, that was probably the most beautiful experience. I mean, it was really painful at the time, but what happened was I was starting to like lose, there was nothing really left. We started teaching online classes, and the attendance was usually low or none, and so the students weren't really there. There wasn't that sense of community anymore for me, where for a really long time I was able to just show up for the students and just kind of put that hat on for the students. But that wasn't there anymore, and I started to really kind of lose my passion for what I was doing, because I didn't feel like I had an outlet for my gift. But what I was left with instead was seeing how much gossip was actually there, and how much negativity and toxicity was surrounded by this teaching community that I was with, stemming from who was supposed to be the leader. And I had multiple conversations trying so hard to bring this to light, and just being so honest, which is really difficult for me. I am not a confrontational person, especially if I know that what I'm going to tell someone that I love is going to hurt them to the core. But I did it anyway. And unfortunately, there was never any positive that really, really came from it. And so I took it upon myself to finally pull the plug and say, you know what, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing with my teaching career. I just don't feel welcome here anymore. I don't feel like this is a supportive place for me to grow. I actually feel instead that it's the complete opposite, that, that my growth isn't appreciated, that, my ideas aren't appreciated. It was like I was put inside a box of, this person was very insecure with her own life, that she really did not want to see me succeed, and it was made very apparent. And it was something that, like, that's like in your head for a minute, and you think like you might, I remember thinking like, could that be the possibility? Am I some sort of threat, or am I some sort of, is she insecure about me, or like what? I just started thinking all these things. And I started getting validation for those thoughts time and time again, whether it was validation from other people who were exposed to the situation, or just validation through the actions that were made against me. And I really do not like gossip, or the like the telephone game, right? Of like, I heard through the grapevine that so and so said this and that and this and that and this. I really don't like that. It's just really uncomfortable. But over the course of my exit, it's been made so clear to me by my students and by other teachers that my faith has been mocked since leaving. I've been called many, many names, and that just in general, my whole career path, everything I'm doing is kind of making fun of, and just, it's just not supported, which for me, I take this as a really good sign. And I know that might sound kind of funny at first, and don't get me wrong, like I said earlier in this podcast episode, I'm talking right now because I have healed and been able to position myself to talk on this. This has been a really, really messy, really, really painful, so painful, really defeating and really confusing time of my life. And it's gone on for a long time. And it did not come quickly for me to understand and know the blessings and know the lessons of this situation. However, God is so good, and when you ask him to help you in an area of your life, he's going to pull through for you. And so when I heard that my faith was being mocked and made fun of, and kind of tested, right, I was relieved. I was so relieved, because I was like, yep, I'm so glad I left. I knew that that was the right decision in that very moment, the moment that I heard that. Because that's exactly what the enemy wants, right? The enemy wants you to question your faith, right? And so you would think that hearing someone that you once respected so much before, hearing that they're mocking your faith or whatever, saying these awful things about you, whatever, it should hurt you, and it did. It hurt me so bad. But at the end of the day, what the enemy wants and what these people want is for me to fail and for me to not lean into my faith even further. But jokes on that, because this is making me lean into God and trust God so much more through this process, and really, really lean on Him in understanding why everything has unfolded the way that it did. And it gives me so much faith in knowing that I am being positioned to be in the best situation possible. And I've spoke on this a little bit before, but like recently when it comes to my teaching, I'm getting back into teaching yoga publicly. I was teaching very privately for the years kind of following the whole COVID thing and just leaving the studio in general. It was just like, not to be dramatic, but kind of like PTSD. I was like, excuse me, hang on. Excuse me. I was kind of thinking like, I do not want to deal with that again. I am so scared. It's kind of like having a bad breakup. Like, you're just scared to get back into dating. You're scared to get back into it. And I've recently just been like so excited to get back into teaching, and to get back into teaching. Something that's been so unique that's happening is I am going back into these teaching opportunities with no expectations at all. I grew to a point at this studio where I was making very, very good money for teaching yoga. And I had so many teaching opportunities. Like, I was teaching full time. It was so, so incredible. However, I did start to kind of get this, I started to kind of lose my passion behind why I was doing it, because I was starting to make money. And unfortunately, within this teaching community too, it was, the person that I was being led by was very much so driven by how much money people brought in. And that's pretty much all that mattered. And so I started to kind of adopt that mentality for myself, right? And as you can hear, that is extremely dangerous. That is such a dangerous situation, especially when you're so early on in your career, and especially when you are in a career of serving people. Like, this is my biggest blessing. I was going to leave this one for last, but I'm going to say it now. This is the biggest lesson, the biggest blessing that came out of this whole experience was I was on my way to being that type of leader. I was on my way to being the leader who only cared about money. I was on my way to being the leader that was threatened by other people's successes. I was on my way to being the leader that did not know how, did not have the capability to lift other people up in my community and to want the absolute best for people. I was on my way there. I was on my way there because that's who I was being led by. And I am so grateful that God has given me the opportunity to start fresh. He has given me the opportunity to literally start this whole thing over, start the ship over again, and just serve from my heart and create my own legacy of leadership, what leadership means to me, which is leading people, which is bringing people up, which is allowing other people's successes to come up alongside me and not be threatened by them. That is who I am, and that is who God has called me to be. And I'm so grateful that He removed the people in my life that did not allow that to happen. I think it's a really big red flag when people don't want the best for you, especially a leader. Think of it as the crabs in a bucket analogy. I've talked about this before. Ange Peters, also known as WholeFit, has talked about this and inspires me every single time that she does. There's crabs in a bucket, okay? You imagine that there's like a literal like sand bucket, right? There's a bunch of crabs in it. And what's going to happen when one of the crabs tries to get out of the bucket because they realize that there is an escape, there's not a lid on that bucket, you can get out. You don't have to stay here. You can, find a life that you want to live. What happens? The other crabs are going to try to drag that crab down and down. However, The people who are going to want to come with you, those crabs that also see that potential of that lid being off of the top of the bucket, they are going to climb out with you, and you are going to literally drag your hand down, drag your claw down, and lift them up and out with you, okay? And that is exactly what happened for me in this situation. There were some teachers there who absolutely hated the fact that I was leaving, hated me, gave me absolute hell. I was bullied. I was, sent just terrible messages, or like, there was so much gossip behind the scenes that like they didn't realize that I was aware of. But that being said, there were more who followed my lead and also left. And sometimes you have to go first. Sometimes you have to be the one to say, you know what? This isn't right. I don't like what I'm seeing here. I'm leaving. And the people who are choosing to stay will choose to stay for their own reasons. But the people who see the potential are inspired by your leadership are going to come with you and going to leave with you. And that is exactly what happened. And the amount of connection that I've made with other teachers who felt the same way, who also needed to make that decision for themselves, has been so beautiful. And like I said, when people are insecure with their abilities, they will drag you down with them. Hurt people. And I just to bring this around, I'm reading off of my lessons here. I was headed in that same direction, and I had to lose it all. I had to lose it all in order for me to see the problems, in order for me to make an informed decision for my life and for my future and for my family too, for the future. Oh my gosh. To say, no, we're out, right? And the biggest lesson of all, and I want you to hold this onto your heart too, is that God has something so big for you. If you're willing to trust him, if you're willing to follow him, even if it doesn't make sense, even if you're literally somewhere and you're like, why am I here? Why am I working at this job that I don't really want to be working at? Why am I here? God has something for you. You just have to actually trust that. And I'm going to close with a quote that I came across literally this morning. It was the first thing I saw when I went on Instagram this morning after my morning prayer. And it just is so good. It says, "The call on your life will not make sense to the world. You cannot rely on the world to validate a calling that was given to you by God. Stand in faith and confidence that God's ability to work through you, even when it doesn't make sense to those around you." I'm going to reread that for you. The call on your life will not make sense to the world. You cannot rely on the world to validate a calling that was given to you by God. Stand in faith and confidence, God's ability to work through you, even when it doesn't make sense to those around you. That's a good one, right, fam? All right. I think this is a good one to leave off on. If you've made it this far into this podcast episode, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the 20 plus minutes out of your day to listen to my story and listen to my heart. I hope that some part of this podcast was able to resonate with you. I hope that some part of this podcast was able to transform your heart, or at least be that start of transformation for you. If there's a situation that you have to leave, or if there's a relationship that you have to leave, or if there's just something that you need to get out of for the betterment of your future, I pray that you are able to put your trust in God, put your faith in God, put your trust and faith in something that is so much bigger than you and so much bigger than this world and the people within this world. Amen, you guys. See you soon.